evening, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. So it's here, the week one, I would have to call it now, review of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So this is Deep Dive Valhalla. So we did the pre-deep dive ages and ages ago when the trailers were not released, and I was very skeptical of the game, but very hopeful. And it's safe to say that playing the game for a week now, over 10 hours in, travelling through Norway, just reached England, so I'm exploring a lot of England. I can't fault the game. Truthfully, I haven't run into issues and I'm loving the game. So, out of fairness, I want to do this episode a bit differently. I know that when I did the other episodes, the games had been out for quite a while, we'd all had our thoughts and feelings, and we all generally knew what we were expecting. Since this is week one, I'm going to give you my honest feedback that I do in all the deep dives. But at the very end, before we end the show, I'm going to read out a couple of player-based reviews from Twitter so you can see the opposite spectrum from what everyone's experiencing, because I haven't experienced any bugs, glitches or annoying features. I've just had a few personal issues with not understanding controls, and I want to give it an honest review for week one. So let's dive in. What is Valhalla? Valhalla to me is the final pit stop on the evolution of Assassin's Creed RPG. It's perfect, it's blended really well, there is some things that could be still improved, but the heart and the core of it is finally fixed. And as I explained in the first impressions episode of the wall, which I use a lot as the analogy, but essentially what I'm trying to suggest is Origins took every RPG mechanic since 2, tried it, it worked, honestly then took that, built the wall higher, realised it was too far, it was a good game, story a bit convoluted but a really good story, could have been severely improved in the combat, the grounded approach, so there was a lot, but the game still rocked, in my opinion. It was a great game. I did review it quite a bit down in the deep dive because there was some things I didn't like. But here we have Valhalla knocking what Odyssey did off the perch and bringing the wall back down to a grounded level where you still have that fantasy style element from Odyssey, but in a grounded way. So what I mean by that is you will come across certain instances like mushrooms, and these are pretty cool. And you take the mushrooms and you'll see some fantasy style stuff. So I've had fights with Draugrs in Norway, I've seen some gates that talked about Thor, Odin and Freya. I've seen seals in England. I can't remember where I found that, but I've seen seals in England from mushrooms. These are quite sci-fi heavy and fantasy, but they're grounded because you can't explain them. There is the whole, I haven't got to them yet, but there is the whole mythology side from Asgard and Jotunheim, and there again through a seer who gives you a potion to drink. Now this is a spoiler-free review, so I want to say more, but I can't about spoiling the story. But quite early on in the game, you see some heavy fantasy elements that make you think, "Wow!" because it's not over the top; it's still grounded, and I really liked that approach. I think the biggest change for me as well about Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a lot of the mechanics, to me, are designed to make the game feel alive. And I know you could say the same thing can be said about Origins, the way everything was bustling, people had a routine, there's a day and night routine. But this is the first game where I feel like we're not playing in memory, we're feeling alive. Because Eivor can fish, you have to consume food to stay alive. You fill your food into rations and they help you heal, so imagine the health potions from AC2. There is a stamina bar, which I've had a good conversation with someone in the AC Sisterhood. I do think I'm agreeing with them on it needs to be remapped a little. The consumption rate for attacks is quite heavy, so sometimes in a huge boss battle or little fights, the consumption of the stamina seems to be causing concern. I haven't noticed it too much myself because some of the battles I've been in have been quite small groups, but I have been doing a lot of stealthy approach, so maybe my playstyle has limited this. So I will agree that maybe the consumption rate for the stamina should be looked at, which is kind of a unique thing. You know, Assassin's Creed always give you the ability just to swing, 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 enemy's dead. There's never been swing and consequence, and now there is, and it's kind of nice. The quest system for side quests is one of the best I've seen in an RPG. For example, there's nothing on the map that sees them. They're classed in the world as mysteries, and there's 3 things on the map. I'll fully dive into this. There's wealth, mysteries, and artifacts. Artifacts are like your tattoos, your sails, your song sheets from Black Flag. Mysteries are like your side quests, some characters you have to kill, like legendary beasts, lost Draugr, and world events. That's the side quests. World events. And how they work in this game is marvellous, because best example, I was travelling around Norway. I saw a world event dot on the map. I went to explore, didn't really know what to expect. Some guy was shouting a raven on a cliff, and I talked to him, and he basically wanted me to do some stuff, and the quest ended kind of strangely. I won't say more, but the quest didn't feel like I had to do it. It wasn't just another box to check. Like, I didn't know the quest was there. I just knew there was a mystery, and that mystery could have been a cairn, a mushroom, a Draugr, anything really that classed as a mystery. And it could be a world event. And just to see this guy running and raving on a cliff and not knowing he was there made the exploration a bit more entertaining, because you're going from point A to point B, and on this map you'll see a blue and a red dot, and you know if you go yellow dots. Sorry, I'm a bit daft now with colours. A blue or a yellow, and you know if you go to yellow you're going to see a wealth, but you don't know what that wealth's going to be. Is it going to be carbon ingot? Is it going to be a weapon or some armour? You don't know what's going to be there or what you're going to face, and that adds a new level of excitement and a risk and reward, as Josh used to say a lot. Same with mysteries. You go to the blue dot, but you don't know what's going to be there. There's been time where I've seen a few mysteries that haven't been on the map, where I've just been riding along Norway, and in England I noticed one. I was just riding along and someone was on the road and wanted help, and I got off my horse to help because it felt natural. It didn't feel like it was just a box I could put in an inventory and come back 10 minutes later. You know, I felt like I wanted to do it. One of the other great changes of this game is Sunin, the Raven. It's balanced, is the best I can explain. So, it's toned down a lot from Odyssey and Origins. It's not as useful, but it is as useful. And by that I mean, it will help you locate a lot of resources and stuff you need for the world, and where to find some of these wealths and mysteries. You can also use the sync points as normal, but it can also be used to scout out an enemy camp. But the caveat here, which I love, is it doesn't auto-tag enemies. You can manually tag up to 5 enemies, as Darby mentioned on Twitter, but Sunin won't automatically tag enemies. This gives the game a new level of stealth that we haven't seen in a long time. We can use Odin's sight to map them, just like we did with Eagle Vision in the old games, but the Raven can manually scout them, and there's been times where I've cleared a camp and I've forgotten where enemy placements are. So I'd call Sunin back up, memorise where they're walking, what they're doing, go back, hunt them down stealthily. I didn't have to just follow little silhouettes on a map that I managed to tag 10 minutes before I even got there. And that was the best part for me. This, how easy enough the stealth was to get grips with, and how I could just do these stuff without being held by hand all the way. And I just want to keep praising the game because I haven't found faults. The game seems to be the right direction. There's maybe a few tweaks, as mentioned before, with the stamina consumption rate, but how they do everything else, the map being less cluttered, so dense and lived in, but less cluttered. And you want to explore these wealth, mysteries, or artifacts because you don't know what's there till you get there. Stealth is really cool. You know, you can always wear a hood now, even in cutscenes, which was kind of interesting. Or you can take the hood down. Hidden Blade's back, as we all know. And I will tell you now, it's satisfying as heck with the Hidden Blade. they have a accessibility option to make it so it's a guaranteed one shot. Essentially, all the Assassin's Creed is back. You do that, guaranteed to hit every one shot. I don't have it on because I didn't see the point. And with being in Norway, exploring, I got the guaranteed assassination skill unlocked fairly quick. And I can tell you now, I can still one-shot everyone. I don't need that setting per se, but the setting does help, I would assume. But without it, you still feel amazing in the game. Just fantastic to use stealth. It's just great to be back. And this game is trying so hard to be this new big RPG, but it wants to hold at its heart Assassin's Creed. And to me, so far from what I've experienced, it's doing it well. I haven't had a chance yet to stumble upon any social stealth, so I can't comment on the social stealth. The other thing I do like about this game is there's some side activities that are kind of fun to do. There's Orlog, which is kind of nice to just get lost in. It's like a battle dice game. Very interesting. There's flighting, there's drinking games. There's just tons in this world to get lost in, and I can't fault the game for doing that. It may feel bigger in areas, it may feel like there's a lot to do when you get into a town with the drinking and the flighting and the Orlog, but when you see something blue or yellow, you just kind of want to settle down for a little bit. Let's try this flighting, and it gets fun and quick. You try this Orlog, you try this drinking, and once you finish it and you go back to the world, you're going to be faced with something new. It's not going to be predictable. You're not just going to a town, know you're going to do these activities, and know that point B is another mission. And I don't know how to explain it in words while playing the game, but it just feels that this game is just less hand-holdy and more live the world, experience the world. This is how a human would live. This is how Eivor's life would be. Eivor wouldn't go to point A to do a quest and farm it like an MMO. She would just walk, see someone in aid, and possibly help. And on about Eivor, I chose the Animus choice because I really was excited, and I was shocked. Appalling, the marketing showed a ton of male Eivor. That was all there was, and I was worried with the Animus choice that I was going to be thrown into male Eivor, male heavy game, female Eivor pushed to the side a little bit, but surprisingly not. You are thrust in the shoes of female Eivor from the start. You can switch any time, and I have done a few times just to hear the voice acting and everything. So it's fantastic to see, even though we had this male heavy marketing, we had a really strong female lead to start with. And I love that because female Eivor is brilliant. Her acting, her emotions, her actual person feels alive and as fleshed out as Cassandra did. And on the flip side, whereas Alexios, people use the cookie cutter example for masculinity, the male Eivor doesn't feel this. He feels so different to female Eivor. His voice acting is fantastic and stunning. And even if I tried it once in a flight, I tried the same responses for both male and female. But the way the voices came across, the dictation, the emotion, they made them sound so separate and so different. And it's fantastic to see that whoever you choose, whoever you're most comfortable playing as, male or Eivor, male or female Eivor, you are given a new and dynamic experience for both. And that is wonderful. I just didn't like the marketing was male Eivor. Could have been nice to see a 50-50, but it's great to see that even with the Animus choice, you are given a lot of the time in a female Eivor, and female Eivor is fantastic, and male Eivor is also fantastic, so I want to thank the voice actors for both of them for doing such a wonderful job. We haven't touched on it much, but combat doesn't feel changed. There's dual wielding, which I was going to mark this game down for, but it turns out I wasn't supposed to be pressing that L1, I was supposed to be holding L1, which was a dumb mistake, so once I figured that out, dual wielding's alright. It's not perfect, it's not innovative, it's just okay for me. I like the idea of it, and some will get a lot out of it, Personally, I still like the idea of just a one-handed weapon. That's just how I play games. But overall, the idea of it in the game is fantastic, and anything can be dual wield. I've noticed a big hammer in my right hand and an axe in my left, and finishing somebody off with them is fun. But the combat doesn't feel changed. Sadly, it just feels like Odyssey and Origins. It's still a bit more heaviness to it. It feels heavy and barbaric and fun, but at the same time it does feel a lot like Origins and Odyssey, so I can't complain because I like it, especially since skills and abilities are two different things, which I'll go into more. So combat does feel a bit more Origins grounded approach, you're actually fighting, and then the stamina adds the risk and the reward. Do you just barge into 20 enemies, bash them all down and hope your stamina lasts? Or do you go more stealth, whittle your enemies down, see what happens then, see what you're left with? Bows seem improved a lot. I think bows deal more damage at times, which is fantastic and fun. So we'll quickly go over the skills and abilities before my final thoughts. Skills are very much like a passive style ability, 3 trees. There's Bear, Wolf and Raven. Raven's Assassin, Wolf is range, Bear is melee. Great thing is, these 3 abilities complement each other a lot. I've invested heavily in the Raven and the Wolf, but I've got quite a few perks for stealth damage, for melee damage, for light attack damage. So even if I'm not going all Bear route, I'm still getting some improvements on my hand-to-hand combat. A lot of these abilities are passives and really interesting. There's chain assassination, similar to Origins and Odyssey, but a bit cooler. There's advanced assassination, which is the guaranteed version, which I probably did mispronounce earlier in this episode, so I apologise. And then there's too many for me to explain, but it's very thought out, and you can respec anytime for free. But then we go to abilities, which I love the most, and you can only get them from the world. You have to find them in books of knowledge. So far the only ones I've got are Throwing Axe Fury, which is a lot of fun, Rage of Helheim, which is like you spear someone and then alternate between left and right attacks, and Fawn of Slumber, which is just a sleeping arrow. Now, because you have to find these in the wild, with books of knowledge, instead of just on a tree, you don't feel as godly as Odyssey, because you can't just use everything. You can't just throw everything into button maps and you're a god. You have to choose which abilities are the best. And if you find an ability in the wild, let's say your first ability you find is Fawn of Slumber, that means a lot of the time in combat you're relying on your skills and your passives, which is a great compliment because it means you're now going to be focused heavily on the combat itself. You're not going to be focused on mashing abilities and trying to win a fight using special effects. You're going to be focusing on using fights tactically through stealth, through range, or just through brute strength. One of the other great things about skills is it gives you power. And each time you've got a skill tree, it comes into power along with your armour. And that affects what area you're in. So the starting area is power 1, the area above it is power 280, and then all the other areas in England do the same. But you see the 280 and you think, great, time to grind like mad, I'm not going to do well in that area. But you could be wrong. I tried this in Norway, because I did spend a lot of time in Norway. I'm trying to 100% the game. I went to Hordefleik, sorry about pronunciation, which is a 280 area. At first I got eaten alive by a polar bear. That wasn't fun. But after I was able to sneak into a bandit camp and stealth everyone, I killed everyone. It was so cool. I think I was power level 20, and I just completely stealth a 280 camp on my own. There is a power level there, and I'm still going to lose a ton of health in open combat. But if you're smart, if you're tactical, the game does give you the ability to still do these areas. So unlike Origins and Odyssey, where you do have that little grind fest, I don't feel this game has it. I feel this game gives you the freedom to explore. You just have to be tactical. You can do it, but it may be difficult. So my final thoughts on the game is, I have to give it a 10 out of 10. Because to me, there's nothing wrong with the game. I have a few personal issues with combat, but that's not because of the game, that's because of me as a player. I'm not a fan of dual wielding, I'm not a fan of sword and shield type games, I just like one-handed stealthy weapons. So going for stuff like that is a personal problem, so that's just me. And the reason I give it a 10 out of 10 is, spoiler free, the story so far is gripping. I don't want to stop playing the story, but at the same time I don't want to stop exploring. So that's how much I'm hooked with the story. The world is amazing, as I mentioned in the first impressions. It's not downgraded, so even if you're playing on a PS4 Slim or Pro, it will still look fantastic, but a bit better on next gen. So it's good to see that it still looks amazing on the current systems. Combat is fun, it's just Origins and Odyssey, but a bit tighter and a bit heavier. Skills and abilities, better balanced, and stealth is just fantastic. You want to be an assassin, you're gonna be an assassin, and it just works fantastic. So again, 10 out of 10 from me, and I would highly recommend it. So if we look at the spectrum, I'm going to read out a couple of thoughts from people who've played the game, and I think this just gives you a better spectrum. You're seeing I'm very positive, but it's only fair you get someone that may have run into some issues. So for the first person I'm going to read from is Andrew Beardsley from Twitter. The only issue that I've come across are situational. One contract kept telling me to be anonymous even though I killed everyone, and the yelling sounds at the beginning of rains don't change in tone or volume, and it's constant. Other than that, I haven't seen anything out of place. Braden Burhorst has said, whenever I'm carrying someone's body to the location that needs me to bring them, it sometimes says, "You must be anonymous," but the thing is, I was never detected and it wasn't a restricted area. And one of the crucial ones I liked was from Taylor McKay. I think that's the potential to be one of the best AC games, but I'm also very conflicted as I loved Origins and hated Odyssey, and it feels too much like Odyssey for me that I'm having a hard time continuing, but yet I'm enjoying my time with the old lore. Being brought back on all the Easter eggs, I'm enjoying the breadth of content, but I'm having a hard time adjusting to the individual story arc structure instead of just one story. It makes it feel like a series of DLCs in a case of weak TV show, and it really hurts the flow. For me, the combat and ability-based combat is once again not my thing, disliking the stealth, as at least my enemies have supervision and see me from bushes and walls and where they turn the opposite way. So, that's a balanced approach. You've had my opinion, I love it, and you've had some other players' feedback. And I think it's vital in a week one that we get as much feedback from all sources as possible. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Next week we've got a special one coming up with a special guest, so keep that ears open for that, and I'll post more on Twitter soon. And after that show, we'll be doing our first book review. You guys liked it in the poll I put on Twitter, so we're going to be doing the first review of Forsaken, which is sort of a build up to 3 but also runs at the same time as 3. Really good book, and I can't wait to review it. So thank you all again for watching and for listening. I don't know where my brain's at tonight, guys, and I'll speak to you all next week.